cuts that could impact public safety, the city of Wichita is beginning the process of putting together the 2026 city budget, and cuts may need to be made.
12 News reporter Brock Wilson live outside of City Hall with a look at what the city is considering. Brock?
Mike, one option the city could consider to balance its budget in 2026 is making changes to the fire department. However, those possible changes are not sitting well with firefighters.
We have been trying to advocating to the citizens on how stretched thin Wichita firefighters really are in this city.
Wichita Fire Union President Ted Bush is concerned about possible cuts.
You should build a budget around emergency services and not build emergency services around a budget.
But cuts could be on the horizon. One possibility,
once the SAFER grant expires in March of 26, that those positions would not be retained.
The SAFER grant allowed the city to hire 42 additional firefighters back in 2023, but the city may not reapply for the grant once the money runs out, which Bush says will create longer response times.
To get your response times shorter, that's very basic. There's not a trick to it. You need more firefighters and more fire stations.
But City Councilwoman Becky Tuttle says now is not the time to worry. The 2026 budget is still a long way off.
Right now, we're just in the due diligence process of determining what we think the budget shortfall could be, and then also being proactive.
Tuttle promises the City Council will focus the city's budget on public safety.
As we're moving forward in our budget process with community engagement, I will certainly be concerned and keeping public safety in the forefront.
Comments that are reassuring to Wichita firefighters who, despite their concerns, are hopeful those 42 positions won't be cut.
I have confidence not only in the city council and the rest of the city council, but I have confidence in the citizens of Wichita who are not going to allow that to happen.
Councilwoman Tuttle says right now the City Council is focusing on the 2025 budget, which will be voted on in August. Any changes that could happen to the fire department likely won't happen until 2026.